Ohana means family, and family is forever. This is a common phrase in a popular TV show known as Lilo and Stitch. And although this may be a Disney TV show, it does in fact carry in a political sense. That is, in many Mercosur meetings. These meetings are held in many summits in Caracas, as well as different parts of the Caribbean. What we must recognize is that Mercosur is actually a family, as they like to put it, and it's made up of 5 key countries in this trade bloc. That is, Paraguay, Uruguay, Venezuela, Argentina, Bolivia, and Bolivia. These 5 countries ultimately show that there is a chance for unity in such polarized world. Evidently, with countries being so polarized, Paraguay has unfortunately been kicked out on more than 5 different accounts. This clearly poses a significant problem on the relationship, and ultimately with the reintroduction of Paraguay in Mercosur, we can clearly see a changing face. Thus, with the fate of Mercosur hanging in the balance, how will the reintroduction of Paraguay affect in the reintroduction of Paraguay in Mercosur affect them economically? The answer to this question is unfortunately by stifling Paraguay's economy, for 3 clear reasons. First, by means of Colombian competition. Secondly, because of rivalry with Uruguay. And finally, because of the fact that ultimately EU connections and communication will ultimately be stifled. So first, what we must recognize is that unfortunately for the country of Paraguay, they're going to see undue competition coming from the country of Colombia. An article published by Foreign Policy, dated May 7th of 2013, states that Colombia has an absolute advantage, but unfortunately they don't have the resources anymore. Now, an absolute advantage is a term coined from microeconomics, and basically what it means is that they're able to produce the most with the amount of resources that they have, which is compared to Paraguay. However, Paraguay has had a strong amount of abundance of flourishment economically, as well as through the petroleum industry. What we must recognize is that through the pact made with Mercosur and Paraguay, what we're going to notice is that it's going to be increasingly problematic for Paraguay to restabilize its relations because of the fact that Colombia will be given undue influence as well as ability to work on reservoirs as well as the oil reserves that are in Paraguay, and thus with Colombia able to extract the same amount of petroleum in the same amount of time, we're ultimately going to notice is that unfortunately for the country of Paraguay, they're going to be stifled economically because Colombia will be leeching off of them. Thus, we can clearly see that the reintroduction to Mercosur is ultimately going to pose more of a problem, stifling their economy than benefiting them. Moreover, what we must recognize is that there is more problems coming with Uruguay. An article published by the Nation, dated January 1st of 2014, goes on to elaborate that unfortunately for the country of Paraguay, they're going to see a significant amount of rivalry. The reason for this is because relations still haven't been reconciled between Paraguay and Uruguay. The 2 countries have been polarized since 2005 due to economic reasons as well as political influences. Ultimately, with the 2 countries unable to reconcile their differences, they will still be unable to meet needs as well as an economic deadline that is going to be met through an economic stimulus, which is planned to happen in 2015. If the 2 countries are unable to work together, this is going to pose a significant problem. Moreover, the International Monetary Fund, dated just last month, goes on to elaborate that Paraguay has been underachieving because of the fact that Uruguay has been putting them down. Moreover, the research goes on to show that ultimately Paraguay has been pushed out of many economic summits in Caracas, and this is going to pose a significant problem on Uruguay because of the fact that Uruguay and Paraguay are not seeing eye to eye. Thus, with the two countries unable to reconcile their differences, we can clearly see that Uruguay is going to stand in the way and thus stifle their economy. So being put back into Mercosur is ultimately going to stifle their economy rather than help them flourish. And finally, what we must take into consideration is that in the long term, there is still going to be a significant problem plaguing the country itself. That is, a lack of connection with the European Union. An article published by El Paso, dated just yesterday, goes on to elaborate that with the current pact and contracts being made in Mercosur, we can clearly see that this trade bloc also prohibits Paraguay from having any type of relation with the EU. The reason for this is because they want to work collectively, and Mercosur and the EU have never actually seen eye to eye either, and thus posing a significant problem on future relations between the two foreboding bodies. Thus, we can clearly see evident problems looming between the two, with Paraguay's economy being heavily dependent on the EU's communication. Thus, with the two at limited ends, we can clearly see the relationship slowly die. So when re-examining today's question, how will the reintroduction of Paraguay into Mercosur affect them economically, we can clearly see that it will ultimately stifle their economy, for three clear reasons. First, because of competition coming in from Colombia due to recent mandates in the pact. Secondly, because of the fact that rivalry has not been reconciled with Uruguay. And finally, because of the fact that unfortunately for Paraguay, they're going to see stifled relations as well as communications with the European Union. So although Ohana may mean family, family has in fact stabbed one another in the back in the past. Thank you.